Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Brunswick, Maine. My name is Michael Kane and I'm a member of our Board of Trustees. Today's service is led by our interim minister, Reverend Justine Sullivan. In honor of LGBTQ+ Pride Month, her service will focus on cherishing and welcoming people of all sexual orientations and gender identities. Please join us for coffee hour immediately following worship to talk about what we can do to safeguard the civil rights of all our siblings. Thank you for joining us.
Our opening words are by Sharon Wiley. We speak so often of brokenness in religious life. Let us speak today of wholeness. You are welcome here, all of you. Every part of you beautiful just the way you are. Here you do not need to be something more or something less. No holding back, no hiding, no exerting yourself, no trying to do more or be more. You have inherent worth and dignity. Nothing to prove here. Nothing to prove to me or the person sitting next to you or to the children or to anyone. You don't have to try and be witty or more quiet or more outgoing. You are beautiful. Every part of you beautiful just the way you are. You do not need to change anything about yourself to be welcome here. Your skin, your hair, your belly, your limbs, your face, all beautiful, just the way they are. You are extraordinary. Each and every one of you different from each and beautiful in your own beautiful way, breathtaking. Come, let us worship together. And let us sing together our opening song, hymn number 23, Bring Many Names. I believe I told you when I first arrived here that when I attended my very first worship service at a UU congregation, I nearly wept through all of it because I was so moved that such a welcoming place existed, and this is one of the hymns that we sang that morning, Bring Many Names. So let us sing this song together.
It Feels Good to Be Yourself, a book about gender identity, written by Teresa Thorne and illustrated by Noah Grigney. This is Ruthie. She's a transgender girl. That means when she was born, everyone thought she was a boy until she grew a little older, old enough to tell everyone that she's actually a girl. Girl is Ruthie's gender identity. This is Ruthie's brother Javier. Javier is a cisgender boy. That means when Javier was born, everyone thought he was a boy, and as he grew older, it turned out everyone was right. He is a boy. Boy is Javier's gender identity. There are so many different ways to be a boy or a girl, too many to fit in a book. But not everyone feels like either a boy or a girl. Non-binary is a helpful word that can describe a kid who doesn't feel exactly like a boy or a girl. This is Ruthie's friend Alex. Alex is both a boy and a girl. When Alex was born, everyone thought Alex was a girl, but Alex is both a boy and a girl. That is Alex's gender identity. This is Alex's friend JJ. JJ is neither a boy nor a girl. Ever since JJ was very little, they never felt exactly like a boy or a girl. They just felt like themselves. This is JJ's gender identity. Alex and JJ are both non-binary. Just like there are many different ways to be a boy or a girl, there are many different ways to be non-binary. Too many to fit in a book. Some kids feel like girls. Some kids feel like boys. Some kids feel like a little of both, part boy, part girl. Some kids don't feel exactly like a boy or a girl. They feel like neither. Some kids feel like their gender identity isn't always the same. It's often changing. And even with all these possible ways to be, some kids don't feel any of the words they know fit them exactly right. There are a never-ending number of ways to be yourself in the world. Whether you feel like a boy, a girl, both, or neither, or if you describe yourself another way, that is your gender identity. Your gender identity might match what people thought you were when you were born, or it might not. See, when you were born, you couldn't tell people who you were or how you felt. They looked at you and made a guess. Maybe they got it right, maybe they got it wrong. What a baby's body looks like when they are born can be a clue to what a baby's gender will be, but not always. When people guess wrong, it's okay to let them know. Ruthie was 5 when she told her parents, "I know you think I'm a boy, but really I feel like a girl." Oops, Ruthie was a girl all along. They just didn't know it at first. When people guess right, it's okay to let them know. Javier was 3.5 when he told his family, "I'm a boy. I like being a boy." You might feel like a boy. You might feel like a girl. You might feel like both a boy and a girl, or like neither. You might feel like your gender changes from day to day or from year to year. You might feel that none of these words describe you perfectly. You might not be sure yet. Maybe you're still figuring it out. Your feelings about your gender are real. Listen to your heart. No matter what your gender identity is, you are okay exactly the way you are, and you are loved. It feels good to be yourself, doesn't it?
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, And now let us enter into a time of meditation or prayer. I invite you to settle in. If it's comfortable for you to do so, let your feet be flat on the floor. Let the chair that you're sitting in or the sofa hold you. Let yourself settle in. Take a few deep breaths in and out. And in and out. If we were together in person, this is a time when we might call forth the joys and sorrows that we are holding. And we would hold them together in this space. And so I invite you now to bring those things that are heavy on your hearts and your minds, and let us hold them with you across the miles, across the wires, across the internet. And if you wish, you may write something in the chat. If we were able to gather in person, we would run into each other in the line for coffee or outside on the way into the church, climbing up the steps, and we would be able to speak our joys and sorrows to one another. And so now we don't have that incidental contact. So I'm putting out the call to you. If there is something on your heart, a joy or a sorrow, a worry, a question, something that is troubling you or that you're curious about, please reach out. Reach out to me, reach out to members of the pastoral care team. We aim to continue to care for one another, even in this virtual online time. So in the spirit of sharing together our communal joys and sorrows, let us enter into a time of prayer. Spirit of life and love, that which energizes all of creation. Sometimes we strain to feel that connection across the miles, when we cannot touch one another, when we cannot see one another in real time and space. Help us to remember that we are connected, that the love that energizes all of creation flows between us even when we are far apart. May we be reminded of that holy, invisible thread between us. And may it envelop us until we are together again. We pray for the members of the United States Congress. We pray for all our leaders. May they know that they are called to serve, not to rule. They are called to bring forth the best in each other and in us. May it be so. And may we raise our voices up for justice, for healing, for peace, and for love. Amen. Blessed be. Ashe. Our reading this morning is an excerpt from the young adult novel Symptoms of Being Human by Jeff Garvin. Riley! It's my mom, calling me from downstairs in her sing-songy voice. I glance at the clock. I'm not really running that late, but I want to get the lay of the land while the campus is still mostly empty. I stop in front of the mirror to examine myself. I don't know if this look will help me blend in at my new school, but it definitely exudes a sort of existential punk vibe, like I care so much I don't care. That feels distinctly me. As a last touch, I mash down my bangs so they hide as much of my face as possible. It'll have to do. 10 minutes later, the three of us pile into Mom's minivan. I've agreed to let both parents escort me on my first day. The closer we get to the school, the more butterflies flap around in my stomach. I don't know what to expect. Maybe the people here will be more open-minded, or at the very least, maybe I'll be able to blend in. As they pull away, Mom gives me an ironic princess wave, and Dad makes devil horns with one hand. I roll my eyes, wait impatiently for the van to turn the corner, and then look around to get my bearings. I'm about 50 yards from the school entrance, where a few clusters of students are beginning to form. I let out a long, slow breath and start toward the gates. A green SUV pulls into the circular drive, and a blonde girl in a short skirt climbs out. As she approaches her friend, she walks past a circle of guys passing around a basketball. One of them wolf whistles at her, and she gives him the finger. Then it's my turn to walk past them. My heart beats faster as I get close. I keep my head down and try to blend in with the concrete. To my relief, no one says anything to me. I've dodged the first bullet. I'm only a few yards away from the big green gates now. All I have to do is make it past the group of girls, and then I'll be on campus where I can disappear into the crowd. But as I draw closer, two of the girls look up and notice me. I glance away, but I feel their eyes on me, scrutinizing, categorizing. I've been through this before, and it shouldn't get to me, but today it does. My skin breaks out in goosebumps, and I wrap my arms around myself and walk faster. "Oh my God," one of the girls says, and my head involuntarily turns to look at her. She's got long brunette hair and a small, perfect nose. She lowers her voice to a stage whisper, but I can still hear what she says. "Is that a girl or a guy?" A fit of giggles erupts from the group around her. My face gets hot. I walk faster, trying to escape the whispers. "No," another girl says. "That has to be a..." "Yeah, but look what it's wearing." It. She called me it. Here ends our reading.
Well, it's a jungle out there. The year 2018, I didn't think we'd still be sorting babies into blue and pink. And all our progress, well, I wonder what it means that the only girls' clothes that work for me turn out to be boyfriend jeans. Well, that's fine, 'cause I decline a narrow set of rules that just don't work. These red lines, they're not mine. And if you need me, you can find me ironing my shirt, 'cause I'm in black tie tonight. Get a postcard to my year 11 self in a year 11 hell, saying everything's gonna be alright. No, you won't grow out of it. You will find the clothes that fit, and the images that stuck ya were a patriarchal structure, and you never will surrender to a narrow view of gender. And I swear there'll come a day when you won't worry what they say on the labels, on the doors. You will figure out what's yours. And it's a bloody nightmare, trying to fight the spread of bigotry and fear that's uniting Piers Morgan and Jermaine Greer. And all our progress, yeah, I wonder who it's for. When I dared to utter that trans lives matter, and yeah, all I got was a turf war. Well, that's fine, 'cause I decline your narrow set of rules, they just don't work. These red lines, they're not mine. And if you need me, you can find me ironing my shirt, 'cause I'm in black tie tonight. Get a postcard to my year 11 self in a year 11 hell, saying everything's gonna be alright. No, you won't grow out of it. You will find the clothes that fit. And the images that stuck ya were a patriarchal structure. And you never will surrender to a narrow view of gender. And I swear there'll come a day when you won't worry what they say on the labels, on the doors. You will figure out what's yours. You will figure out what's yours, and that it's got nothing to do with fitting neatly in a box that was constructed to make it seem like people come in just two teams, and anything that's in between ain't good enough. And you will love, and you'll be loved. You're in black tie tonight. Get a postcard to my year 11 self in a year 11 hell. Darling, everything's gonna be alright. No, you won't grow out of it. You will find the clothes that fit. And the images that stuck ya were a patriarchal structure. No, you never will surrender to a narrow view of gender. And there's folks you've yet to meet, but you're exactly up their street. And they've been waiting just as long to hear someone sing this song. And better days are on their way, when it won't matter what they say on the labels, on the doors. You will figure out what's yours. And girl, you're gonna be so happy. And girl, you're gonna be just fine. And girl, you're gonna be so happy. Down the line, down the line.
Like many of you Unitarian Universalists, known as people of the words, I love language. I love finding just the right word or phrase to capture something. I love puns and plays on words, and I even love grammar. I use subjunctive on purpose. And I do it not to show off, at least I don't think so. I just happen to delight in the rhythm of language, the music of it, and solving the mystery of how words fit together correctly. One of the first times I spoke with my spouse was at a gathering of gay employees of a high-tech company, and of course, our meetings were held in the parish hall of a UU church. I didn't know what Unitarian Universalism was then, but they let us meet there. I had just gotten my first job that had business cards, and so I gave Dale one of my cards. I feel compelled to reciprocate, was her response, and my heart fluttered. Yes, I love language. When President Obama was first elected, he gave one of his early speeches or press conferences, and Dale and I were watching it together, and he made a common grammatical error. Dale didn't even look up. She just kind of patted my arm and said, "It's okay, I know." Hillary wouldn't have, I know. She understands me. And I know that I got this love of language from my father. A gift sometimes hard won. One of my earliest memories of talking with my father as a little girl, not yet in school, includes him correcting my grammar and criticizing my overuse of the utterance But my father was known for his eloquence, this kind of old-fashioned way of speaking that I admired and tried to emulate. True story. When I was in second grade, we had a student teacher for part of the year. And when it came time for her to leave us, we made her a giant card, and each second grader wrote a message to her. Some wrote goodbye, good luck. Others wrote thank you or I'll miss you. I wrote, congratulations to a very successful young lady. Second grade. So much in that story is cringeworthy. Successful, I wonder if I spelled it correctly. And young lady, who says young lady at 7 years old? Now, this was the 1960s and a lot was changing in the world, but it took a while for that kind of change to make its way to a second grade classroom. This was a time when men were men and girls were girls. Lady was a polite term, and almost no one said woman. Ms. was a made-up word that people only used with a mocking tone or inside quotation marks. Language evolves. I hate that. I mean, part of me hates that. I guess I'm glad that language has loosened up a bit since the time of Shakespeare. But now that it's perfect, and by that I mean now that I have mastered its rules, I don't want it to change. For example, I will never use the word dialogue as a verb. But what about gender in language? When I was growing up, the proper word to use when the gender was unknown was he or his. If a student wants to succeed, he must do his homework. In the 1970s, we began to see his or her, or his/her, or sometimes s/he. But like the word Ms., it took a while for this to be done routinely. More likely, it was offered with attitude, with kind of an annoyed look at any feminists in the room who are just ruining everything for the rest of us. It's not about equality, they would say. It's just the way the sentence flows. It just sounds better this way. And besides, it's more correct. Those are the rules of language. It has nothing to do with gender equality. The rules of language are important. But fairness is also important, and inclusion, and seeing yourself represented in the stories of the culture. If all the powerful people in the culture, the ones with the big jobs, are referred to as he or him, then we all learn that every boy can be president. Remember that song? Now, it's just a song, and it's just words, but aren't words the primary way that we transmit culture and values? There is a riddle that I grew up with, maybe you remember it too. A father and son are traveling somewhere, and they're in a car accident, and they're taken to the hospital. The father is treated in the emergency room, and the son is taken into surgery. The surgeon walks into the operating room and says, "I can't operate on this boy, he's my son." The answer? 40 years ago, 50 years ago, it took us a lot longer to figure it out, that the surgeon could be the boy's mother, a woman, or maybe a second father, a second parent. But if you're not part of the standard, the preferred pronoun he, the generic white male, you have to do an extra step, an internal translation to see yourself in that role, or to see anyone that doesn't fit that standard version. And maybe it's just a few extra seconds, microseconds even, but over a lifetime, those moments of having to translate into your own identity to see yourself means that a lot of energy is expended that could have been used for other things. How do you even measure something like this? Social scientists have developed something called the implicit bias test, dozens of tests actually that you can take online, many of them free, to see what level of implicit bias assumptions that you make, that you might have in a given area. And the thinking is that if you're aware of this implicit bias, then you can work to counteract it. It's why congregations in search for a new minister are encouraged to attend a workshop called Beyond Categorical Thinking, to challenge us to be aware of and examine the effects of implicit bias and even other forms of prejudice that might limit us in imagining who our next minister could be. Now, how many of you have spent time in a meeting with Unitarian Universalists trying to write something, trying to write or edit a letter or a bylaw together, arguing passionately about phrasing and grammar, even punctuation? My people. And so you know that doing something like writing or editing a document in a large group, say as large as a congregation, is difficult, right? Challenging. So imagine then General Assembly, that big annual gathering of Unitarian Universalists from around the globe, where thousands of UUs gather each year in a different city to do the business of our association. Imagine trying to edit something in a group that size. Now, lots of exciting things happen at General Assembly: powerful worship, music, workshops, gathering with other Unitarian Universalists from across the country and around the world. And there are also hours of plenary sessions, meetings, where there is passionate discussion about important issues like actions of immediate witness, and sometimes things like bylaw changes. Now, to avoid having 4,000 people trying to write and rewrite one document, we have mini assemblies that are held during General Assembly, and this is where amendments can be offered and voted on, and where the nitty-gritty of writing something together gets worked on. So a few years ago, when I was serving as a district president, I was asked to moderate some of these mini assemblies, which is quite an experience. And a few years ago now, several years ago now, I was presiding over a mini assembly that was considering some changes to the bylaw governing our campaigns for UUA president. The bylaw change was necessary to move from the president serving up to 2 4-year terms to serving just 1 6-year term. There was language that read, the presidential candidate shall be able to have their, and someone placed on the agenda for discussion at the mini assembly an amendment that would correct that grammatical error, right? The word there is a plural adjective, presidential candidate is singular, and so requires the words his or her or his/her. You get the idea, but the adjective would need to be singular to agree with the noun. I love grammar. Well, this would be an easy one, I thought, just an oversight to correct. And much to my surprise, there was discussion. People were saying that there was more inclusive. And the attorney serving as parliamentarian was shaking his head saying, this is a legal document, it's a grammatical error. And it was getting a little bit out of control when I was supposed to be in charge. And of course, this was being recorded and streamed live, recorded for posterity, for all the world to see. If I ever run for public office, this is the clip that they will play over and over again. I went to the microphone and said that we were trying to work this out, that we had some competing values here. The value of inclusivity and the value of correct grammar. One person proposed making the noun plural, so then there would be correct, and I thought that sounded pretty good, and maybe that would be the end of it, and I felt some relief. And then a woman walked slowly to the procedural microphone. And she paused. And then she said these words. As the mother of a transgender child, one who does not identify with one gender or the other, this whole conversation has caused me great pain. And my heart stopped. And then ached with hers. Yes, I love language and grammar and getting things right, but I love people more. Language is a tool for us to use, a way for us to express what is most important to us. And when it becomes a source of pain, it must change. We must change from a love of language to a language of love. Now, I pride myself on being kind of in the know about all things LGBTQIA+, but this was new for me. Or rather, I was experiencing it finally more with my heart and less with my head, this idea of a non-binary gender identity. That for some folks, male or female, he or she just doesn't fit and requires the same kind of mental gymnastics that the male as the standard in language required of me as female. So I have been seeking to learn more since that experience of not quite getting it at General Assembly, when I was responsible for holding that space for discussion. At least for that one moment, I fell short. I let my love of correct grammar obscure my perception of what was most important. That we make the space larger. That we let ourselves imagine a wider diversity than perhaps has been expressed before. I don't know exactly how it feels to be in a body that is not aligned with how I see myself, with how I feel on the inside, or how it might feel to be somewhere on the gender spectrum, but neither male nor female. But I have known what it is to be on the outside, to be the other, to be seen as less than, and to be misunderstood. And maybe some of you have had those experiences too, not being truly seen as yourself. And sometimes those who don't see us as we are, as we long to be seen and known, dismiss us. They reject us, try to make us disappear, but we owe each other so much more than that. Here in this country, gays and lesbians have made great progress in the fight for civil rights. I'm from Massachusetts, and my spouse and I have been legally married since 2004. But the T in LGBT, for transgender folks, the fight is not over. The current administration has unleashed new attacks on the rights of trans people. And we know that when basic human rights are under attack, it almost always leads to an increase in violence against the people whose rights are seen as expendable. The I in LGBTQIA stands for intersex, people whose bodies do not conform to one sex or the other. And the A stands for asexual, folks for whom sexuality and sexual attraction, that energy, are not driving forces in their lives. All these possibilities, a variety of orientations and identities exist in nature as part of the human experience, and all worthy of respect and dignity. So it matters. It matters that we keep fighting for those who are not yet free to live in safety as their authentic selves. And it begins with naming. Each of us gets to say our own name. We are called each and every day as a people of faith to make room for the newcomer and each other as we are, as we know ourselves to be. I'm not asking us all to change our language in huge ways, or worse still, to be afraid to speak for fear of getting it wrong. What I'm asking of myself and of all of us is to listen as deeply as we can to the true name of each person we meet. This is the language of love, the language of one soul truly encountering another soul, and where we meet the divine. There is no other, only we. May it be so.
We are dancing Sarah's circle. We are dancing Sarah's circle. We are dancing Sarah's circle. Siblings one and all. Here we seek and find our history. Here we seek and find our history. Here we seek and find our history. Siblings one and all. We will all do our own naming. We will all do our own naming. We will all do our own naming. Siblings one and all. On and on the circles moving. On and on the circles moving. On and on the circles moving. Siblings one and all.
Our closing words are by Laura Lynn Bellamy. If here you have found freedom, take it with you into the world. If you have found comfort, go and share it with others. If you have dreamed dreams, help one another, that they may come true. If you have known love, give some back to a bruised and hurting world. Go in peace. Let us go forth into the world in peace, my friends. May we share the love that lives between and among us with this broken and beautiful world. May it be so.